She fed a sick, homeless woman every day until one night her Korean Mafia boss son knocked on her door. The rain was the kind that soaked through to your bones. Imani Brooks stood under the flickering awning of the Bluebird Diner at 2:47 a.m., staring at the woman curled up against the brick wall across the street. She'd been there for 3 nights now, small, frail, Korean, maybe 60, with graying hair plastered to her face and clothes that had once been expensive, but were now just wet rags. Most people walked past her. Some dropped change without looking. But Imani saw something in the woman's eyes when they'd made contact earlier that shift. Not defeat, but a kind of quiet resignation that felt too familiar. It was the same look Imani's own mother had worn in those final months before the cancer took her, when she'd known she was dying, but tried to pretend everything was fine. "You're doing it again," Marcus, the night cook, said through the kitchen window. "Girl, we talked about this. You can't save everybody." "I'm not trying to save everybody," Imani called back, already packing leftovers into a container. "Just her, just tonight." She crossed the empty street, rain immediately soaking through her uniform. Up close, the woman looked worse, lips tinged blue, shivering so hard her teeth rattled. Imani knelt down, offering the food in the umbrella she'd grabbed from the diner's lost and found. "Ma'am, when's the last time you ate?" The woman looked up, eyes widening with something like fear. She said something in Korean, shaking her head, trying to wave Imani away. "I don't understand," Imani said gently, "but I've got hot soup and bread. Please, you look like you're freezing." The woman stared at the container, and Imani watched her resolve crumble, watched her reach out with trembling hands and take the food, watched her eat like someone who hadn't had a real meal in days, weeks maybe. When she finished, she looked at Imani and said something else in Korean, softer this time with tears streaming down her face. "You're welcome," Imani said, even though she had no idea what the woman had said. "I'm Imani. I work right there." She pointed at the diner. "I'll bring you something tomorrow, okay? You just stay safe." She didn't expect the woman to still be there the next night, didn't expect her to become a routine. But every shift for the next 2 weeks, Imani brought food, coffee, sometimes a blanket or dry socks. The woman never spoke English, and Imani never learned her name. But they developed a language of gestures and smiles and small kindnesses that transcended words. "You know she could be dangerous," her co-worker Destiny said one night. "Could be crazy. Could be on drugs. Could rob you." "She weighs maybe 90 pounds and can barely stand," Imani shot back. "What's she gonna rob me with? Harsh language I can't understand?" But on the 15th night, the woman wasn't there. Imani felt a spike of panic. Had something happened? Had she been arrested? Hurt? She searched the surrounding blocks during her break, calling out uselessly to someone who couldn't understand her anyway. She found her 2 streets over, collapsed in an alley, barely conscious. This time, Imani didn't hesitate. She called 911, rode with her in the ambulance, lied and said she was family so she could stay in the ER. And when the doctors said the woman had pneumonia, severe dehydration, and needed to be admitted, Imani gave them her own information as the emergency contact because she had no one else. "This is insane," her best friend Rochelle said when Imani called her from the hospital at 6 a.m. "You don't even know this woman. She could have family. She could have people looking for her." "Then where are they?" Imani's voice cracked with exhaustion and frustration. "She's been on the street for weeks, Chell. Sick, alone. If she had people, they would have found her by now." "Or maybe they don't want to be found," Rochelle said quietly. "Baby, I love your heart. You know I do. But you can't fix everyone's broken family just because yours." "Don't," Imani cut her off. "This isn't about Mom, isn't it? Random homeless woman who needs help, and you're moving heaven and earth for her. You're at a hospital you can't afford, probably about to be stuck with bills you definitely can't pay, for someone who might not even remember you did this." "I'll remember," Imani said softly. "And that's enough." She stayed at the hospital for 3 days, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, bringing the woman who the nurses just called Jane Doe books even though she couldn't read English. On the 3rd day, the woman woke up more lucid, saw Imani sitting beside her bed, and started crying. She reached out and grabbed Imani's hand, holding it like a lifeline, saying something over and over in Korean that sounded like gratitude or apology or both. A Korean nurse passing by paused, listened, then translated. "She says you're an angel. She says she doesn't deserve your kindness. She says, she says her son would be ashamed of what she's become. Tell her she deserves kindness, Imani said firmly. Tell her everyone does. And tell her that her son, wherever he is, would be proud that she's fighting to get better. The nurse translated, and the woman sobbed harder, pulling Imani into a hug that smelled like hospital soap and old grief. When she finally pulled back, she pressed something into Imani's hand, a small tarnished locket she'd been wearing around her neck. She wants you to have it, the nurse said, says you've given her something more valuable, hope, and that this is all she has to give back. Imani tried to refuse, but the woman was insistent, closing Imani's fingers around the locket with surprising strength. Inside was a photo, a young boy, maybe 8 or 9, with serious eyes and a slight smile. On the other side, Korean characters Imani couldn't read. What does it say? Imani asked. The nurse squinted. My greatest treasure, my deepest regret. 2 weeks later, the woman was released. The social worker had found her a bed at a transitional housing facility that specialized in helping elderly immigrants. Imani visited twice, bringing groceries and sitting in silence that felt comfortable now, familiar. On her third visit, the woman was gone. She left last night, the facility director said apologetically. Didn't say where she was going, just thanked us and walked out. We tried to stop her, but legally we can't hold someone against their will. Imani felt the loss like a physical ache. She'd gotten attached, she realized, had started to think of this woman as someone permanent in her life, someone she was helping to heal. Instead, the woman had disappeared back into the city, and Imani was left with just the locket and a hollow feeling in her chest. She tried to move on, went back to her routine, working double shifts at the Bluebird, taking community college classes online, trying to save enough to eventually get her nursing degree. She wore the locket every day, hidden under her uniform, a reminder that small kindnesses mattered even when you never saw the results. And then, exactly 1 month after the woman disappeared, someone knocked on Imani's apartment door at midnight. She lived in a converted garage in South LA, barely 300 square feet, with bars on the windows and neighbors who minded their own business. No one visited this late. Imani grabbed her phone, finger hovering over 911, and called through the door. Who is it? Silence. Then a man's voice, deep and accented. My mother gave you her locket. I need to speak with you about her. Imani's heart stopped. She looked through the peephole and saw him. Tall, Korean, maybe 28, wearing an expensive black coat despite the LA heat. His face was sharp, beautiful in a dangerous way, with a tattoo creeping up the side of his neck. Dark eyes that held the same intensity as the boy in the locket photo. She opened the door, but kept the chain on. How did you find me? The hospital had your information as emergency contact. I've been looking for my mother for 6 months. His eyes moved to her throat, where the locket was visible above her collar. That's hers, which means you know where she is. I don't. She left the facility 3 weeks ago. I don't know where she went. Something flickered across his face. Pain, frustration, fear, carefully controlled. Tell me everything, please. Every detail about where you found her, what she said, how she was. I'll pay you. Name your price. I don't want your money, Imani said, studying him through the gap. Why should I tell you anything? For all I know, you're the reason she was on the street in the first place. You're right to be suspicious. His jaw tightened. But I'm also her son, and I've turned this city upside down looking for her. If you helped her before, I'm begging you to help me now. Just tell me she's alive. That's all I need to know. There was something raw in his voice, something that reminded Imani of herself in those last months with her mother. Desperate, terrified, grasping at any thread of hope. Against her better judgment, she unchained the door. She's alive, or she was 3 weeks ago. But she was sick, really sick. Pneumonia, malnutrition. The doctor said if I'd found her even a day later. Imani didn't finish the sentence. He closed his eyes and Imani watched him fight for composure. When he opened them again, they were glassy. Thank you for saving her life, for caring when you had no reason to. Everyone has a reason to care, Imani said quietly. She's a person. That's reason enough. He stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. Then, I'm Yoonji Hwan, and I owe you a debt I can never repay. Imani Brooks, and you don't owe me anything. I did it because it was right. Then let me buy you dinner. Tomorrow night, so I can hear everything about my mother, every conversation, every moment. Please, I'll answer any questions you have about why she was out there. I'll be completely honest. I just need to know her. Imani should have said no, should have wished him luck and closed the door on whatever complicated family drama had put his mother on the streets. But she looked at his face, at the desperate hope barely concealed behind carefully controlled features, and thought about how she'd give anything for one more conversation about her own mother. Okay, she said, tomorrow, but somewhere public, and you tell me everything. Everything, he agreed, I promise. The restaurant Ji-hwan chose was in Koreatown, small and elegant, with private booths and food that smelled like heaven. Imani had changed 3 times before settling on a simple black dress, telling herself this wasn't a date, just information exchange. But when Ji-hwan stood as she approached, wearing dark jeans and a fitted shirt that showed off the full extent of his neck tattoo, her heart did something complicated. You came, he said, and she heard relief in his voice. I said I would. I keep my word. I'm learning that about you. He pulled out her chair, and Imani sat, hyper-aware of his proximity. Order anything, everything. I want you to experience the food my mother used to make before everything fell apart. They ordered, and Ji-hwan poured tea with practiced grace. Then he said, tell me about the first time you saw her. So Imani did. She described finding his mother against the wall of the diner, bringing her food every night, the way she'd smiled despite obvious pain. Ji-hwan listened without interrupting, but Imani watched emotions play across his face. Grief, guilt, anger, love. She spoke to you, he said finally. Even though you didn't understand. That means she trusted you. My mother. She hasn't trusted anyone in a long time. Not since... He stopped, jaw clenching. Not since what? Why was she out there, Ji-hwan? What happened? He was quiet for a long moment, fingers tracing patterns on his water glass. Then, my father was the head of a Korean organization here, what you'd call Mafia. When I was 16, a rival gang targeted our family. My father was killed. My mother, they took her, held her for 3 months. Imani's blood ran cold. Oh my God. When we got her back, she wasn't the same. PTSD, the doctor said. Severe trauma. She couldn't live in our house anymore. Too many memories, too many triggers. So she moved into a small apartment, and I made sure she had everything. Nurses, security, medication. But 6 months ago, she disappeared. Just walked out one night and vanished? And you've been looking for her since. Every day, every night. I had people searching shelters, hospitals, morgues. His voice cracked. I thought she was dead. I thought I'd lost her the way I lost my father. And then you called the hospital and suddenly there was a record, a name, Imani Brooks, the woman who'd saved my mother's life and asked for nothing in return. I didn't save her life. The doctors did. You found her. You stayed with her. You cared. Ji-hwan's eyes were intense, burning. Do you know how rare that is? How many people walk past my mother without seeing her? You saw her. You treated her like she mattered. She does matter. Everyone does. You really believe that? It wasn't a question. Even knowing what my family is. What I am. Are you going to hurt me? Imani asked bluntly. Never. I'd die first. Then I don't care what you do for a living. I care how you treat people. And you clearly love your mother. That tells me what I need to know. Ji-hwan stared at her like she'd just spoken in tongues. You're not afraid of me? Should I be? Most people are. They see the tattoos, hear the family name, and decide I'm dangerous, untouchable. Are you dangerous? Yes. No hesitation. Very. I've done things that would horrify you. I run operations that exist in gray areas of the law. I make decisions that affect hundreds of lives. But Imani, he leaned forward. I would never hurt someone innocent, never harm someone who didn't choose this life, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. Is your mother yours? She's my whole world, the reason I do any of this. I took over my father's position to protect her, to make sure what happened to her could never happen again. And I failed. Anguish cracked through his controlled exterior. She was out there suffering while I was building an empire, supposedly to keep her safe. You didn't fail. She's alive because you raised her to be strong enough to survive. And she's alive because when she needed help, someone cared enough to give it. That's not failure. That's just being human. Ji-hwan reached across the table and took Imani's hand. The contact sent electricity through her, but she didn't pull away. Help me find her, please. You built trust with her. She might come to you if she knows you're looking. I don't know how to find someone who doesn't want to be found, but you'll try. I can see it in your eyes. You're already thinking about where she might go, what she might need. He was right. Imani had spent the last 3 weeks wondering about the woman, hoping she was safe. Okay, I'll help. But Ji-hwan, if we find her, you have to let her make her own choices. You can't force her into treatment or lock her up for her own good. I just want her safe. Safe isn't the same as controlled. Promise me you'll respect her autonomy. He was quiet, clearly struggling. Then, I promise. On my father's grave, I promise. Finding someone who didn't want to be found in a city of 4 million people should have been impossible. But Imani had something Ji-hwan's money and connections didn't. She understood what it meant to be invisible, to exist in the spaces between worlds where people with resources never looked. She started with the obvious places: shelters, soup kitchens, parks where homeless populations gathered. Ji-hwan wanted to send his people, but Imani refused. Your guys in suits asking questions will just scare everyone. Let me do this my way. So she went alone, during her breaks and after shifts, showing the locket photo to anyone who'd look. Most people ignored her. Some were hostile. But slowly, painfully, she started to piece together a trail. A woman at the Spring Street shelter remembered seeing someone matching the description 2 weeks ago. A vendor at the Grand Central Market recalled a Korean woman who'd sat for hours watching people pass. A librarian downtown mentioned an elderly Asian woman who came in every morning to read Korean newspapers. She's staying mobile, Imani reported to Ji-hwan during one of their now regular evening meetings. Never in the same place twice. It's like she knows someone's looking. She probably does. My mother is smart. Paranoid, but smart. Ji-hwan rubbed his face, exhaustion evident. What if she doesn't want to be found? What if seeing me would make things worse? Then we deal with that when it happens. But Ji-hwan, you can't give up. She's your mother. You say that like it's simple, like love makes everything okay. It doesn't, but it's a start. They'd grown closer during the search. What started as obligation became something else. Long conversations over late-night coffee. Ji-hwan showing up at the diner during Imani's shifts just to keep her company. Stolen moments where they forgot about the search and just existed together. This is a bad idea, Rochelle warned when Imani told her about their growing connection. He's literally a criminal, with face tattoos. Who runs the Korean Mafia? I know what he is. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're falling for him, and that's going to end badly. Maybe, probably. Imani smiled despite herself. But Shelley, when I'm with him, I feel seen. Like I matter beyond just my kindness or my usefulness. He asks about my dreams. He listens when I talk about nursing school. He treats me like I'm his equal. Until he doesn't, until his world collides with yours and you get hurt. Everyone gets hurt eventually. At least this way, I'll have something beautiful to remember. But Rochelle's warning echoed in Imani's head 3 nights later when she left the diner at 3 a.m. and found Ji-hwan waiting in his car, face tight with tension. Get in! Now! His tone brooked no argument. Imani slid into the passenger seat. What's wrong? Someone knows you're helping me find my mother, and they've put a target on your back. Ice flooded Imani's veins. What are you talking about? My father's enemies, the ones who killed him, who took my mother, they've resurfaced, and they know you're connected to me now, know you matter. How do they know that? Because I've been careless, been seen with you too much. Let my guard down. He slammed his palm against the steering wheel. This is my fault. I put you in danger. So what do we do? I have security on you starting now. 2 guys 24/7. They'll keep their distance, but they're there. Ji-hwan, I can't afford security. I can barely afford my rent. I'm paying. Non-negotiable. He turned to face her, and Imani saw fear in his eyes. Real, genuine fear. Imani, these people are brutal. They torture for fun. I won't let them touch you. Maybe I should stop helping. Back away before this gets worse. It's too late for that. They've marked you as important to me. The only way forward is through. Find my mother, end this threat, make sure you're safe. And if we can't find her, we will. His hand found hers. Because you're brilliant and determined, and you see things no one else does. And because I refuse to lose both of you. The confession hung between them. He just admitted she mattered as much as his mother, that losing her would devastate him. Ji Huan, I know this is fast, I know it's insane, but Imani, I haven't felt this way about anyone since... He stopped. Actually, I've never felt this way. You walked into my life because you have the purest heart I've ever encountered, and somehow that pure heart saw past everything I am to who I want to be. And who do you want to be? Better. Someone worthy of the way you look at me. Someone my mother would be proud of. Imani leaned across the console and kissed him. It was brief, soft, but it said everything words couldn't. When she pulled back, Ji Huan was staring at her like she just performed a miracle. The break came from an unexpected source. Imani was restocking napkins at the diner when an elderly Korean man approached, speaking rapidly in his language and gesturing at the locket around her neck. I don't understand, Imani said helplessly. The man switched to broken English. Your necklace. I know, woman. In picture. She come to church. St. Agnes, Koreatown. Every Sunday, back pew. Imani's heart raced. She's there now? Every Sunday, 9 a.m. Mass. She pray for son, cry for him. I try talk, but she leave fast. It was Thursday. 3 days until Sunday. 3 days to prepare for a reunion that could either heal or shatter Ji Huan's mother. 3 days for Imani to figure out how to navigate the most delicate situation of her life. We can't just ambush her, Imani told Ji Huan that night. If she sees you and panics, we might lose her again. Then you go. She trusts you. She barely knows me. She gave you her most precious possession, that locket with my photo. She wouldn't do that unless she felt something. A connection. Hope. Ji Huan paced his penthouse like a caged animal. Go to the church. Talk to her. Tell her I love her, that I'm sorry for failing her, that I just want her to come home. What if she says no? Then I'll respect her choice, but at least I'll know she's alive, that she's safe. That's more than I had a month ago. Sunday morning, Imani sat in the back pew of St. Agnes Catholic Church, watching the door. The service started at 9. By 9:15, she was losing hope. Then the door opened, and there she was. Ji Huan's mother, thinner than before, wearing a clean but threadbare coat, eyes scanning the congregation nervously before sliding into the last row. She didn't see Imani at first, spent the service with her head bowed, lips moving in silent prayer. It was only when people started filing out that Imani moved, positioning herself in the aisle. Recognition hit the woman like a physical blow. Her eyes widened and she froze, half standing, half sitting, clearly torn between running and staying. Please don't go, Imani said softly. I'm not here to force you to do anything. I just want to talk. The woman looked around frantically, then spoke in rapid Korean, shaking her head. A priest approached, elderly and kind-faced. Can I help? Father, do you speak Korean? I need to talk to this woman, but there's a language barrier. I can translate. He spoke to the woman, who responded in a flood of words. The priest's expression grew thoughtful. She says you're the angel who saved her life. She says she's not ready to go back. She says her son is better off thinking she's dead. Imani's heart broke. Tell her that's not true. Tell her I've met her son. He's been looking for her every single day since she disappeared. He loves her. He's desperate to know she's alive. The priest translated. The woman started crying, shaking her head violently. She says she brings only pain. She says the men who hurt her are still out there, still looking for ways to hurt her family. She stays away to protect him. Tell her that her son is strong. He runs the organization now. He can protect her, but he needs her. He's lost without her. More translation, more tears. Then the woman reached out and grabbed Imani's hand, speaking directly to the priest while staring into Imani's eyes. She says if you promise he's truly safe, if you swear on your own mother's memory that bringing her back won't endanger him, then she'll see him. But only if you're there. She trusts you. Imani thought about Ji Huan's face when he talked about his mother, the desperation, the love. the barely concealed grief. I swear, she said firmly. On my mother's memory, I swear he's safe, and I'll be right there with you. They met at Ji Huan's penthouse 2 days later. He'd wanted somewhere private, secure, where his mother could leave if she needed to without a scene. Imani arrived first, found him pacing with barely controlled anxiety. What if she hates me? He asked, voice raw. What if seeing me makes her worse? Then we'll deal with it. Together. Imani took his hands, feeling them shake. But Ji Huan, your mother doesn't hate you. She left to protect you. That's love, not hate. The knock came at exactly 3 p.m. Ji Huan froze, literally unable to move. So Imani opened the door. Ji Huan's mother stood there, small and fragile and terrified. She saw Imani first, managed a trembling smile. Then her eyes moved past, found her son, and Imani watched 6 months of grief and fear and love explode across both their faces. Iama, Ji Huan whispered, the Korean word for mother breaking on his lips. His mother said something in Korean, just one word, but Imani didn't need translation to understand. The woman ran to her son, and Ji Huan caught her, and they both collapsed to their knees, holding each other and sobbing with the kind of raw, unguarded emotion that made Imani's own eyes burn. She gave them space, stepping back into the kitchen, listening to them speak rapid Korean, punctuated by crying. It went on for 20 minutes, 30, an hour. Finally, Ji Huan appeared, face red and swollen, but lighter somehow, more at peace than Imani had ever seen him. She wants to thank you, he said, voice hoarse. Properly. Will you come sit with us? In the living room, Ji Huan's mother sat on the couch, looking small against the expensive furniture. But when Imani entered, she stood, bowed deeply, then pulled Imani into a fierce hug. She says you gave her son back his mother, and gave her back her son. Ji Huan translated, voice thick with emotion. She says you're family now, forever. No takebacks. Imani hugged the woman back, feeling the bird-like fragility of her bones. Tell her I'm honored. Tell her I lost my mother 3 years ago. And helping her, meeting both of you, it's helped heal something I didn't know was still broken. Ji Huan translated, and his mother started crying again, holding Imani tighter. They spent the rest of the afternoon together. Ji Huan translating, his mother slowly relaxing, Imani learning pieces of her story. Her name was Yoon Mi-sun. She'd been a pianist before marriage. She loved gardening and old movies. She'd tried to disappear because the men who tortured her had sent a message 6 months ago. They were coming back to finish what they started. But they didn't know where you were, Ji Huan said carefully. Their intel was bad. We verified it. You were safe the whole time. Safe on the street? Mi-sun spoke through her son, her tone sharp despite the language barrier. Safe, sick, and alone? Iama, I would have protected you. I know. That's why I left. Because you would have died trying. And I've lost enough. The conversation grew heated then, shifting fully into Korean. Imani couldn't understand the words, but she understood the emotion. Months of fear and anger and love pouring out. She was about to leave them alone when Ji Huan said, Stay, please. My mother wants you to stay. So Imani stayed, a silent witness to a family rebuilding itself. And as the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the penthouse in gold light, she realized something terrifying and wonderful. She was falling in love with Ji Huan. Actually, truly, irrevocably in love with a man whose world was so different from hers, they might as well be from different planets. Mi-sun moved into the penthouse guest room. Ji Huan wanted her somewhere he could protect her, but Imani negotiated space. No locked doors, no forced therapy, freedom to come and go with security, following at a distance. You're better at managing my mother than I am, Ji Huan said one evening, watching Imani help Mi-sun plant herbs in the penthouse balcony garden. I'm not managing her, I'm respecting her. There's a difference. Teach me. So she did. Taught him to ask instead of command, to listen instead of fix, to be present without hovering. And slowly, painfully, the relationship between mother and son began to heal. Imani was there for all of it. Dinners where Mi-sun cooked traditional Korean food, and Imani brought soul food. Movie nights where they watched old films with subtitles. Quiet afternoons where Mi-sun taught Imani basic Korean while Ji Huan worked. My mother loves you, Ji Huan said one night, pulling Imani close on the balcony. She says you have a pure soul. that I should marry you before you realize you're too good for me. Your mother's wise, so I should marry you. Imani's heart stuttered. That's not what I meant. But would you? If I asked. His hands framed her face, dark eyes intense. Imani, I know this is fast. I know my life is complicated, but you've become essential to me, to us. This penthouse was just a space until you started filling it with life. Ji Huan, I'm not proposing, not yet. I want to do it right. Court you properly. Let you see all of me, the good and the bad and the ugly, before you decide. But I need you to know my intention. I want forever with you. I'm a waitress taking community college classes online. You're a man who loves you. That's all that matters. It's not. Your world is dangerous. I've already been targeted once. What happens when... The explosion cut her off. Glass shattered inward as the balcony door blew apart. Imani felt herself thrown backward, Ji Huan's body covering hers, the world reduced to heat and noise and terror. When the ringing in her ears subsided, Imani heard shouting, Korean, English, gunfire. Ji Huan was pulling her up, blood streaming from a cut on his temple, moving with deadly purpose toward the panic room. "Me son!" Imani gasped. "Where's your mother?" Ji Huan's face went white. He changed direction, heading toward the guest room. The door was open. The room was empty. "No!" Ji Huan breathed. "No, no, no!" Then they heard it. Mison's voice, strong and clear, speaking Korean from the hallway. They ran, found her standing between Ji Huan's security team and three armed intruders, hands raised, speaking rapidly. "Iyama, get back!" Ji Huan started, but his mother cut him off with a sharp gesture. One of the intruders responded in Korean. The exchange grew heated. Then Mison did something that froze everyone. She pulled up her sleeve, showing scars that Imani had noticed but never asked about. Scars that told stories of torture and survival. She spoke again, pointing at Ji Huan, at Imani, at the security team. Her voice was fierce, commanding, nothing like the fragile woman who'd been living on the streets. The lead intruder lowered his weapon, said something that sounded like a question. Mison responded, then walked forward, actually walked toward armed men and placed her hand on his gun, pushing it down gently. More conversation. Then impossibly, the man nodded. He spoke to his team and they lowered their weapons, back toward the shattered balcony door. Disappeared into the night. Silence. Then Ji Huan, "Yama, what did you do?" Mison turned and Imani saw strength in her that hadn't been there before. She spoke in Korean, and Ji Huan translated haltingly. She says she told them that the men who tortured her 6 months ago were killed by her. She says she hunted them down one by one and made them pay for what they did. And she says these men, they're sons of the men she killed. They came for revenge. Jesus, Imani breathed. She told them she understands their anger, that she would feel the same. But she said if they kill her son, they'll have to kill her too. And if they kill all of us, the cycle continues forever. She offered them a choice, walk away now and the debt is settled, or start a war that will destroy everyone. And they chose to walk away? Imani couldn't believe it. Mison spoke again, and this time Ji Huan's voice cracked as he translated. She says they walked away because she told them that their fathers had been monsters who deserved what they got. But they're just boys, young, stupid, angry, and she won't let them throw away their lives for monsters. Ji Huan pulled his mother into his arms, and Imani watched this woman who'd seemed so broken reveal herself as anything but. She was a survivor, a fighter, someone who'd been pushed to the edge and climbed back with bare hands and iron will. "I don't understand," Ji Huan said when he could speak again. "You disappeared to protect me, but you were really hunting," Mison said in English, one of the few words she knew. Then back to Korean, which Ji Huan translated. She says she couldn't live knowing those men were free, couldn't sleep knowing they might hurt someone else the way they hurt her. So she found them, and she made sure they'd never hurt anyone again. "Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped." "Because you would have stopped me, would have tried to protect me. And I didn't want protection. I wanted justice." The confession hung heavy. Then Imani stepped forward, placing herself between mother and son. She did what she needed to survive, to reclaim her power. And now it's over. Now she can actually heal. Mison looked at Imani with tears streaming. She spoke and Ji Huan translated. She says you understand, better than anyone, because you've survived too. Different trauma, different scars, but you know what it means to claw your way back from darkness. Imani thought about her mother's death, the months of grief where she'd barely functioned, the slow, painful journey back to living instead of just existing. Yeah, she said softly. I understand. The police came. Questions were asked. Security footage was reviewed. But in the end, the story was clear. Attempted home invasion, successful defense, intruders fled. No bodies, no charges. Just another night in the complicated world Ji-hwan inhabited. I need to leave, Imani said 3 days later, standing in Ji-hwan's repaired penthouse. This is too much. The violence, the danger, the constant fear. I can't live like this. I understand. Ji-hwan's voice was hollow. I'll make sure you're protected until... I'm not done talking. Imani stepped closer. I need to leave this penthouse, but I'm not leaving you. Ji-hwan, I love you. Against all logic and self-preservation instinct, I'm completely in love with you. But I can't live in a fortress. Can't be someone who needs security teams and panic rooms. So either we figure out how to build a life that works for both of us, or we end this now before I'm in too deep. You're already in too deep. So am I. He crossed to her, taking her hands. What if I step back? Put someone else in charge of operations. Focus on the legitimate businesses. Give you the normal life you deserve. I don't want you to change who you are. I want you to evolve into who you want to be. And I want to be part of that evolution. Even knowing the risks? I work with your mother now. She's helping me start a nonprofit for homeless immigrants. I'm already in your world, but I need it to be our world, built together with boundaries and safety and honesty. I can do that. Ji-hwan pulled her close. Imani, I'll build you whatever world you need. Just don't leave. I'm not leaving, I'm staying, but on my terms. Deal? Deal. They sealed it with a kiss that tasted like promises and hope and the terrifying leap into shared futures. 6 months later, Imani stood in the community center she'd built with Misun, a space that provided meals, job training, housing assistance, and medical care for LA's invisible populations. The same populations that had hidden Misun when she was hunted, that had protected her while she hunted in return. Ji-hwan had funded it, Misun had designed it, but Imani ran it, turning her experience as a waitress and her unfinished nursing education into something that actually helped people. The grand opening was packed, Korean and Black communities mixing, sharing food, sharing stories, building bridges. Your mother would be proud, Ji-hwan said, appearing beside her with 2 cups of punch. So would yours. Imani accepted the drink. Where is she anyway? Teaching a cooking class in the kitchen. Apparently soul food and Korean food have more in common than anyone realized. He smiled and Imani marveled at how much lighter he seemed now. How stepping back from the darkest parts of his organization had let him actually live. Ji-hwan? Rochelle approached, looking uncomfortable in her fancy dress. Your mom wants Imani for something. Says it's important. In the kitchen, Misun was waiting with a group of elderly Korean women and what looked like every Black grandmother in South LA. She saw Imani and broke into a huge smile, gesturing her forward. What's going on? Imani asked. Misun spoke in Korean, and one of the bilingual volunteers translated. She says these women have been teaching her about Black culture, African American history, soul food traditions, and she wants to honor that learning. She wants to present you with something. An elderly Black woman, Mrs. Washington from the church down the street, stepped forward holding a beautiful quilt. We made this, she said, all of us together, Korean and Black grandmothers, stitching cultures together. For you, for bringing us together. Imani took the quilt, tears streaming. It was stunning. Traditional Korean patterns mixed with African American quilt designs, creating something entirely new. Something that represented exactly what she and Ji-hwan were building. There's more, Mrs. Washington said with a sly smile. She nodded to Misun, who pulled out a small box. Imani's heart stopped. Misun opened the box, revealing a ring, simple, elegant, with a small diamond surrounded by smaller stones in black and white. She handed it to Ji-hwan, who'd somehow appeared behind Imani. My mother wanted to be part of this, Ji-hwan said, dropping to one knee. She picked the ring. She planned this moment. Because Imani Brooks, you didn't just save her life. You saved mine. You took a man who was drowning in duty and violence and showed him what it means to actually live. Around them, the grandmothers were crying. Rochelle was filming. Random community members were gathering. You're ridiculous, Imani whispered, tears streaming. Proposing at a work event? This isn't a work event. It's a celebration of everything you built, everything we built together. And I want to build more. A marriage, a family, a life that honors both our cultures and creates something new. Say yes. That's not a question. Because I'm not asking. I'm begging. Marry me. Please, make me the luckiest man alive. Imani looked at the ring, at Ji Hwan's hopeful face, at Mi-sun, who was crying and smiling simultaneously, at the community they'd built, impossible bridges between worlds. Yes, she said, you absolute maniac. Yes. The room exploded in cheers. Ji Hwan slid the ring on her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. When they broke apart, Mi-sun was there, hugging them both, speaking rapid Korean that probably didn't need translation. What did she say? Imani asked anyway. She said, Ji Hwan's voice was thick with emotion. She said she spent 6 months wanting to die, and then an angel in a waitress uniform gave her soup and remembered her humanity. And that angel led her back to her son, and now that angel's becoming her daughter. She says it's proof that miracles exist. I'm not a miracle. I'm just someone who cared. That's what makes you a miracle. Ji Hwan kissed her forehead. You cared when you had no reason to. Gave when you had nothing. Saw my mother. Saw me. When we were both invisible. That's not common. That's extraordinary. So are you. Imani pulled him close. So is your mother. So is this. She gestured at the room full of people from different worlds, brought together by food and kindness and shared humanity. The wedding happened 6 months later, in the community center they'd built together. Traditionally Korean in some ways, deeply African American in others, but mostly just theirs. Mi-sun walked Imani down the aisle since Imani's mother couldn't. Rochelle was maid of honor. Ji Hwan's second in command stood as best man, looking uncomfortable in his tux. They exchanged vows in English and Korean, promising to honor both their cultures while creating something new. Ji Hwan signed papers that officially transferred most of his criminal operations to lieutenants, keeping only the legitimate businesses. Imani accepted that some parts of his past would always be present, but they didn't have to define their future. I never thought I'd end up here, Imani said during their first dance. Married to a former crime boss, working with his mother to help people, living in 2 cultures simultaneously. Regrets? Not even one. She rested her head on his chest. Well, maybe one. I wish my mom could have met you. I think she sent me to you, Ji Hwan said softly. Your mother and my sister, working together from wherever they are, making sure we found each other. You believe in that stuff now? You used to say you only believed in what you could see. I believe in you, and everything that brought us together, my mother ending up on that street, you being the one person who saw her, the chain of events that led to us. It's too perfect to be random. Someone was looking out for us. Imani thought about the woman curled against that brick wall, about bringing soup on a rainy night, about a locket pressed into her palm, about a dangerous man who knocked on her door looking for his mother and found his future instead. Maybe you're right, she said. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe, Ji Hwan spun her gently, you're just someone who sees people other people miss. Who cares when caring is hard? Who builds bridges instead of walls? Maybe that's not fate. Maybe that's just who you are. And maybe you're someone who was worth finding, who changed when change was hard, who loved enough to let his mother make her own choices and me make mine. Maybe that's who you are. We sound insufferably sappy. We really do, Imani grinned. I blame your mother. She's been coaching me on romantic Korean drama dialogue. As if summoned, Mi-sun appeared, pulling them both off the dance floor toward the cake. She spoke in rapid Korean, and Ji Hwan translated. She says less talking, more eating, and also she expects grandchildren within 2 years. Apparently we've made her wait long enough. Tell your mother we'll take our time. Thank you very much. I'm not telling her that. I value my life. They cut the cake together, a 3-tiered masterpiece that somehow incorporated both red bean and sweet potato pie, fed each other with theatrical romanticism that made their guests cheer, danced until Imani's feet hurt, and Ji-hwan's tie was somewhere on the floor. Later, as the party wound down, Imani found Mi-sun sitting alone, watching the remaining guests with a peaceful expression. "Thank you," Imani said, even though Mi-sun's English was still limited. Mi-sun understood anyway. She pulled Imani down beside her, taking both her hands. She spoke in Korean, slowly, clearly, making sure Imani understood through gesture and tone, if not words. Ji-hwan appeared to translate. She says that when she was on the street dying, she prayed for someone to remember she was human, to see her as a person, not a problem. And you did. You gave her back her humanity. And in doing that, you gave her back her son, her life, everything. She says she'll never stop being grateful. "I didn't do anything special. I just brought her soup." "You brought hope," Ji-hwan corrected, "to both of us. And that's everything." Mi-sun spoke again, and this time her tone was fierce. Ji-hwan smiled as he translated. "She says you're her daughter now. Blood doesn't matter. You're family, forever. And if anyone, including me, ever hurts you, she'll personally destroy them. Your mother is terrifying." "She really is." Ji-hwan kissed the top of Imani's head. "We're both so lucky you're brave enough to love us anyway." 5 years later, Imani sat in the same community center, now expanded to 3 locations across LA, watching her daughter, 3 years old with Ji-hwan's eyes and Imani's smile, play with Mi-sun in the corner. They were making kimchi together, the little girl's hands covered in red pepper paste, laughing at something her grandmother said in Korean. "She's going to be trilingual by the time she's 5, Ji-hwan said, appearing with coffee. "English, Korean, and apparently she's been teaching herself Spanish from the kids in the after-school program. She gets that from your mother, that stubborn determination to connect with people. She gets it from you, the belief that everyone deserves to be seen and heard." Imani watched her family, chosen and built, complicated and perfect, and thought about that rainy night years ago. About a woman who'd needed soup and dignity. About a man who'd needed someone to see past his power to his pain. About how one small act of kindness had spiraled into this. A life, a family, a community. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if you'd walked past my mother that night?" Ji-hwan asked quietly. "Every day. But I didn't walk past. And that's what matters." "Why didn't you? Really? You'd never met her. She couldn't communicate with you. You had no reason to care." Imani thought about it, about her own mother, about loneliness, about the invisible people in every city who just needed someone to remember they were human. "Because," she said finally, "I saw her. Actually saw her. Not as a homeless person or a problem or someone else's responsibility. As a woman who was cold and hungry and scared. As someone's mother. As someone who mattered. And once you really see someone, you can't unsee them. You have to act. And that's why I love you." Ji-hwan pulled her close. "Because you see everyone. Even the people the world has decided are invisible." Their daughter ran over then, chattering in a mix of languages about the kimchi and grandmother and some elaborate story that only made sense to 3-year-olds. Mi-sun followed, moving slowly now. The streets had taken a toll her body was still paying, but smiling with joy that made her look decades younger. They stood together, this impossible family built from kindness and crisis and choice. A black woman from South LA, a Korean former crime boss trying to be better, his mother who'd survived the unsurvivable, and their daughter who would grow up knowing that love could cross any border, bridge any gap, heal any wound. And it all started because one night, in the rain, Imani Brooks had stopped for a woman everyone else had decided was invisible, had brought her soup and dignity and hope, had remembered that everyone, no matter how broken or lost, deserved to be seen. "Come on," Imani said to her family. "Let's go home." Home. Not the penthouse anymore. They'd moved to a house with a garden where Mi-sun could plant and their daughter could play. A home filled with the smells of both their cultures, with Korean and English, and laughter in any language. As they walked out together, Imani thought about that locket she still wore sometimes, hidden under her clothes. The one with Ji-hwan's childhood photo and Korean characters that read, "My greatest treasure, my deepest regret." Except it wasn't regret anymore. It was promise. It was future. It was proof that sometimes the smallest acts, a bowl of soup, a moment of attention, the choice to see instead of look away, could change everything, and change everything it had.